Ever wondered if that old British penny lying around might actually be worth a small fortune? Today, we're diving into the top 4 most valuable UK one-penny coins from the reign of King George VI, revealing their history, design, rarity, and current value. Let's get into it. First up, the 1945 UK one penny featuring King George VI is a fascinating piece of British coinage history. At first glance, it may look like just another old coin, but it represents the final years of World War II and a significant period of change in the British Empire. This coin carries not only a modest face value, but also a deeper story. And in the right condition, it could be worth much more than just 1 penny. The obverse of the coin features a portrait of King George VI, facing left, designed by Thomas Humphrey Paget. The Latin inscription around the portrait reads, Georgius sequent vias di gratia Britanniarum omnium rex fidei defensor Indiae imperator, which stands for George II, by the grace of God, King of all the Britons, Defender of the Faith, Emperor of India. This title reflects Britain's global influence at the time, especially with India still under British rule in 1945. Just 2 years later, in 1947, India gained independence, and the royal titles would change in response. On the reverse side, you'll find the classic image of Britannia, the female personification of Britain, seated with a trident in her left hand and a shield by her side. This design had been used on British pennies for well over a century and symbolized the strength and pride of the British nation, particularly during wartime. In terms of technical details, the 1945 penny was made of bronze, weighed approximately 9.4 grams, and measured 31 millimeters in diameter. Over 240 million of these coins were minted, which makes it a very common coin overall. It was produced at the Royal Mint in London and circulated widely throughout the United Kingdom and its territories. Because of the high mintage, the 1945 penny is not considered rare in circulated condition. Most examples found today are worn, having been used for many years in daily transactions. A heavily circulated coin typically sells for very little, usually between 10 pence to £1. However, if you come across a 1945 penny in uncirculated or near mint condition, its value can rise significantly. In brilliant uncirculated grade, collectors may pay anywhere from £20 to £100, depending on how well the coin has been preserved, especially if it still shows its original mint luster. Next up, the 1919 UK one penny is a fascinating coin from the reign of King George V, who ruled from 1910 to 1936. This particular penny is part of a long-standing British tradition, with the iconic image of Britannia still gracing its reverse. Though it may appear to be just a simple bronze coin, the 1919 penny holds a rich historical background, and in some cases, it can be worth a surprising amount to collectors today. The obverse of the 1919 penny features a left-facing portrait of King George V, designed by Bertram McKennell. The Latin inscription reads, Georgius 5 D G B Rit Omn Rex F D Ind EMP. This translates to George V, by the grace of God, King of all the Britons, Defender of the Faith, Emperor of India. This title reflects the British Empire at its height, with colonies across Asia, Africa, and the Caribbean. On the reverse side of the coin, we see the timeless figure of Britannia, seated and facing right, holding a trident in her left hand and a shield bearing the Union Jack in her right. She sits beside the sea, symbolizing Britain's naval power and strength during the post-World War I era. The date, 1919, appears below her. This coin was struck in bronze, had a diameter of 31 millimeters, and weighed approximately 9.4 grams. It was minted at more than one location, which is where things get interesting for collectors. In 1919, the UK penny was minted both at the Royal Mint in London and at the Heaton Mint in Birmingham, which used the small H mint mark just below the date on the reverse. Now let's talk about mintage and value. In total, over 113,001,919 pennies were produced, making it one of the more common dates for this coin series. However, there are some distinctions. The 1919 H mint mark penny, struck at the Heaton Mint, is more desirable due to its slightly lower mintage. Regular 1919 pennies with no mint mark are common in circulated condition and typically sell for £1 to £5, depending on where. The 1919 H penny, on the other hand, can be worth £5 to £15 in better grades. If you find one in uncirculated condition, the value could rise significantly, sometimes reaching £50 to £100 or more, especially if it has strong details and original mint luster. Certified high-grade examples are always in demand with collectors. Next up, the 1947 UK One penny featuring King George VI is more than just an old coin. It's a historical artifact from a time of global recovery, national change, and the beginning of a new post-war era. While the coin is fairly common in circulation, it carries important historical context and holds value for collectors, especially when found in top condition. Let's start with the design. The obverse of the 1947 penny features the portrait of King George VI, who reigned from 1936 to 1952. The portrait shows the king facing left, wearing no crown, with the inscription around the edge reading Georgievs Secvendivies Dei gratia Britanniarum omni viem rex fidei defensor Indiae imperator. This Latin phrase stands for George VI, by the grace of God, King of all the Britons, Defender of the Faith, Emperor of India. The title Emperor of India was still in use in 1947. Although that was the very year that marked a huge historical turning point, the independence of India from British rule. Later coins would no longer include that imperial title, making the 1947 penny one of the last to reflect Britain's colonial legacy in its royal inscription. On the reverse side of the coin is the classic seated Britannia design. She sits facing right, holding a trident in her left hand and a shield with the Union Jack in her right. This design had been a long-standing symbol of British pride and naval power, appearing on pennies for over a century. Below the image, you'll see the date, 1947, struck clearly beneath Britannia's feet. The 1947 penny was struck in bronze, measured 31 millimeters in diameter, and weighed approximately 9.4 grams. It was produced by the Royal Mint, with a total mintage of over 37 million coins, making it relatively common in terms of availability. These coins were used in daily life across the UK, which means most surviving examples today are in well-worn, circulated condition. Next up, the 1921 UK One penny is a classic coin from the reign of King George V, a monarch who ruled during a time of global change, from World War I through the economic challenges that followed. While the coin might look like an ordinary piece of old copper, it carries with it a legacy of British history, and, in some cases, can be a valuable addition to a collector's set. The obverse of the 1921 penny features the portrait of King George V, facing left, designed by Sir Bertram McKennell. Around the portrait is the Latin inscription Georgievs 5 DD G B Rit Omn Rex FD ind Iemp. This stands for George V, by the grace of God, King of all Britons, Defender of the Faith, Emperor of India. It reflects the British Empire's global presence at the time, with King George V ruling over an empire that covered nearly a quarter of the world's land area. The reverse side shows the iconic figure of Britannia, seated and facing right, holding a trident and shield, with the word 1 penny around the edge and the date 1921 below. This reverse design had been a feature of the penny since the 19th century and symbolized Britain's maritime strength and stability. The coin was minted in bronze with a diameter of 31 millimeters and a weight of about 9.4 grams. It was produced at the Royal Mint in London with a total mintage of over 129 million coins, making it a fairly common year for the George V penny series. In terms of value, the 1921 penny in circulated condition is quite affordable. Most examples in average circulated grade are worth between 50 pence and £2, depending on wear. These coins were used daily for decades, so heavy wear is expected. However, the story changes if you come across a high-grade example. A 1921 penny in uncirculated condition, showing strong detail and original mint luster, can be worth 10 to 30 pounds, and in mint state, MS 65 or higher, the value can go even higher, possibly reaching 50 to 100 pounds or more, especially if professionally graded and certified.